Welcome back to the deep dive. I am incredibly excited for this one because, frankly, we are attempting something a little bit dangerous today.
Dangerous. I didn't know I needed to bring a helmet.
Well, intellectually dangerous. We aren't just unpacking a news story or, summarizing a business book today. We are going to try and map the history of the Western mind.
Okay.
And I don't mean a list of dates and battles and kings with funny hats.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to look at the operating system, the software that has been running in the background of Western culture for the last 500 years.
That is a massive ambition. You're talking about the architecture of thought itself.
Exactly. We all walk around with this software installed. It tells us what is real, what is valuable, what is right, and what is wrong. But most of us, we never actually check the source code. We just assume the software is glitch-free. Today, based on this stack of research, specifically, why do I think, like I do, and Paul Little's Know Why You Believe, we are going to pop the hood.
I like that. Pop the hood.
We want to see how that code was written, how it was updated, and honestly, how it might have crashed.
It's a fascinating trajectory. It's really a story about how we answer the biggest questions imaginable. And what's most interesting to me is that most people don't realize they're on this trajectory.
Right.
They think their current view of the world is just how it is, rather than, the result of a 500-year drift.
To get us started, I want to give you a bit of cultural whiplash. I'm going to throw 3 quotes at you from our source material.
Right.
These are like flags planted on 3 different mountain peaks of human history. I want you to listen to them and really feel the tension between them. You ready?
I am ready. Lay them on me.
Okay, quote A. This comes from the Shorter Catechism, a historic document of faith that generations of schoolchildren memorized. It says, the chief end of man is to glorify God and enjoy him forever.
Wow. The chief end? That implies a specific design, a singular purpose. It's very vertical. It points up.
It does.
It suggests we are arrows aimed at a target.
Right. It's anchored. Now here is quote B.
Yeah.
Fast forward a few centuries. This is the famous opening to Carl Sagan's Cosmos. You can almost hear his voice in your head when you read it. The cosmos is all that is, or ever was, or ever will be.
A very different picture. The vertical is gone. The ceiling has been lowered.
Completely.
We are now in a closed room. The focus has shifted entirely to the material universe.
Exactly. And now, quote C. This is something you hear in coffee shops or dorm rooms or on social media threads every single day. Truth is relative. What's true for you is not necessarily true for me.
And there we have it, the fragmentation of reality. We went from a vertical anchor to a material box to, well, a shattered mirror.
That's a great way to put it.
Everyone holding their own little shard of glass.
It's jarring, right? These aren't just random slogans. They represent tectonic plates shifting in how human beings understand reality. Our mission for this deep dive is to figure out how on earth we got from quote A to quote C.
It's a long and winding road.
How did we move from a universe centered on a creator theism to a universe centered on the individual's perception, postmodernism?
It is a massive shift. And to understand it, we have to start by defining our terms. We're talking about worldviews.
That's a buzzword we hear a lot. What's your worldview? It sounds so academic, but what does it actually mean in this context?
Yeah.
I feel like people use it to just mean my political party or my opinion on taxes.
No, it's much deeper than that, much more fundamental. Think of a worldview as the filter through which you see everything.
Okay.
It's not just your opinion on a specific issue. It's the framework that determines your opinions. It answers the ultimate questions. Where did we come from? Why are we here? What is right and wrong? Is there life after death?
The source material uses great metaphor for this. It says a worldview is like a pair of glasses.
Exactly. If you put on a pair of glasses with red lenses, the whole world looks red. The white wall looks red. The blue sky looks purple. The green grass looks brown. Now, let me ask you, is the wall actually red?
No. But if I never take the glasses off, I would argue to the death that it is. I'd think you were crazy for saying it's white.
Precisely. You don't look at the lenses, you look through them. But those lenses determine how you interpret every single object in the room. If your lenses, your worldview, say that matter is all there is, then when you see a sunset or a charitable act or a scientific discovery, you interpret it strictly through that materialist lens.
So today we are essentially acting as optometrists. We are examining how the prescription of Western civilization's glasses has changed over the last 5 centuries.
That is a perfect way to put it. And the roadmap we're following, based on these sources, tracks a very specific degradation or evolution, depending on how you see it, of ideas.
Okay, so lay it out for us. What's the path?
We are going to move from theism through deism into naturalism, down into nihilism and existentialism, and finally land where we are today, postmodernism.
And just a note to you listening, this isn't a history lesson. We aren't going to quiz you on dates. This is a why do you think the way you think lesson. We want to uncover the hidden assumptions that govern our modern lives. So let's start at the beginning. Section 1, the starting point, theism.
This takes us back to the medieval and early modern periods. Now, we need to be precise about what we mean by theism here. We aren't just talking about a vague belief in a higher power or, spirituality.
But this isn't I'm spiritual but not religious.
No, not at all. Theism, as it defined the West for centuries, has very specific pillars.
Our source, Why Do I Think Like I Do, breaks this down. It says that in theism, God is both transcendent and immanent. Okay, let's unpack that. I know transcendent usually means above and beyond, but what is the significance here?
Transcendent means God is outside the universe. He isn't part of nature. He created nature. Think of it like an author in a book.
Okay.
The author is not a character in the book. The author transcends the book. He creates the timeline, the setting, the plot. He's on a completely different plane of reality from the characters.
Right, but he's only transcendent. He's untouchable. He's just out there, distant.
Exactly. That brings us to the crucial but. In theism, God is also immanent. That means he is involved in it. He is here. He interacts with his creation.
So he's not just the author.
He writes himself into the story.
Ah, okay. So he's not just a distant force. He's a hands-on creator.
Precisely. Theism holds that God is both the creator and the sustainer. He didn't just light the fuse of the Big Bang and walk away. He holds the universe together moment by moment.
So it's an active, ongoing process.
Continuous. And because of this, truth in a theistic worldview is absolute. It's knowable. And importantly, truth is found in the past, specifically in Revelation, like the scriptures. The wisdom is ancient, not something we invent tomorrow.
There's a story in our other source, Know Why You Believe, by Paul Little, that illustrates this perfectly. It's the gardener analogy. It's originally from a philosopher named John Wisdom, I believe.
Yes, popularized by Antony Flew. It's a classic way to describe the theistic perspective. Imagine two explorers hacking their way through a dense jungle. Suddenly they stumble into a clearing. And in this clearing, they see many flowers growing in beautiful rows, but they also see weeds.
It's a mix, order and chaos.
Right. One explorer, let's call him the believer, says, "Look at the design. Some gardener must tend this plot." The other explorer, the skeptic, disagrees. He says, "There is no gardener. Look at the weeds. And besides, I don't see anyone."
He's a very empirical, show me the evidence kind of guy.
Exactly. So they decide to settle it. They set up a watch. They wait. They bring in bloodhounds. They electrify the fence around the clearing. They do everything a scientist would do to catch an intruder.
Right, they set up an experiment.
They do, but they never see a gardener. The dogs never bark. The fence never sparks. Nothing.
So the skeptic feels vindicated.
The skeptic says, "See? I told you, no gardener." But the theist, the believer, doesn't give up. He says, there is a gardener, but he is invisible, intangible, silent, and works in secret.
And the skeptic asks the obvious question. What is the difference between an invisible, intangible, silent gardener and no gardener at all?
And that is the challenge. But for the theist, the evidence isn't the sighting of the gardener, it's the garden itself. The theist looks at the design, the arrangement of the flowers, the intentionality of the plot, and concludes that despite the lack of a physical sighting, the order itself is evidence of a mind.
So the evidence is the effect, not the cause.
Exactly. You infer the cause from the effect. And that leads us to why people held this worldview for so long. It wasn't just blind superstition. I think modern people often assume that people in the Middle Ages just believed because they were uneducated.
Oh, for sure. The Dark Ages myth.
But the source, Know Why You Believe, lays out some heavy arguments for why theism was and is considered rational.
Right. We have to dispel the idea that people in the past were just less intelligent. They had strong philosophical reasons for theism. One of the biggest is the design argument.
This is the watchmaker idea, right? If you find a watch on the beach, you assume a watchmaker, not that the ocean waves accidentally assembled gears and springs.
Exactly. And the source points to the fine-tuning of the universe. This is a more modern version of the argument.
Okay, tell me about that.
It's the idea that the cosmic constants, things like the strength of gravity, the oxygen levels in our atmosphere, the distance of the Earth from the sun, if any of these were off by a fraction of a percent, life as we know it couldn't exist.
Give me an example.
If gravity was a little stronger, The universe would have collapsed back in on itself shortly after the Big Bang, a little weaker, and stars and galaxies would never have formed.
So it's calibrated on a razor's edge.
Razor's edge. The theist looks at that precision and says, that didn't happen by accident. That's calibration. That's design.
The source also mentions irreducible complexity in biology. We'll get into the weeds of that a bit later when we talk about evolution, but the basic idea is fascinating.
Yeah, what is that?
It's the idea that some biological systems are like a mousetrap. A mousetrap has 5 parts: the base, the spring, the hammer, the holding bar, and the catch. If you take away any one of those parts, it's not that the mousetrap works poorly. It doesn't work at all.
It's useless.
Completely. And the argument is that things like the human eye or the blood clotting mechanism are the same. They are so complex that they couldn't have just slowly appeared piece by piece over millions of years. They need all their parts working at once to function.
Which implies a designer who planned the whole mechanism from the start.
That's the argument. Then there's the moral argument, which I find particularly compelling in the text.
This is the C.S. Lewis point.
Yes. Lewis observed that human beings everywhere argue based on a standard of fair play. When someone cuts in line, we don't just say, I personally dislike that. We say, that's not fair.
We appeal to a higher law.
We appeal to a standard that we assume the other person knows and is bound by. It's like an unwritten law. We act as if there is a rule book in the sky that everyone has read.
And we get outraged when people break the rules.
Yeah. We do. And if there is a universal moral law, the theist argues there must be a moral lawgiver. You can't have a law without a legislator. You can't have a command without a commander.
And the final pillar of this theistic worldview is the personal aspect. It's not just a force or a prime mover. It's a person. The belief that the infinite God penetrated the finite world.
That is the immanent part. Again, the idea that God isn't just a concept, but a being you can know. So in this era, medieval through early modern, the goal of philosophy was a grand synthesis.
What do you mean by that?
They were trying to fit all knowledge, science, history, morality, art, everything together under the umbrella of God. God was the starting point, the unifying principle for all of reality.
But then something happens. The umbrella starts to leak. We move into section 2, the first shift. We enter the Enlightenment and the rise of deism. What caused this? Why did we need to change the prescription of the glasses if the old ones were working?
It wasn't one thing. It was a perfect storm of crises. The source material lists a few key disruptors. First, the Renaissance. We usually think of art and culture, but it was also an era of information overload.
How so?
Ancient texts from Greece and Rome were being rediscovered, challenging established authorities and ways of thinking. It was like the internet of the 15th century. Suddenly, there were all these competing ideas.
Then you have the New World. Suddenly, Europe discovers entirely new civilizations that aren't in their history books, not in the Bible. It challenges the center of the worldview.
It decentralizes everything. And the Reformation, this is crucial. You had religious wars, Christians killing Christians over doctrine. The 30 Years' War was devastating, killing millions.
That would make anyone cynical.
It made people cynical. They started to question religious authority. They started asking, if these people are fighting to the death over truth, maybe we can't trust the church to tell us the truth.
That leads to skepticism. The question becomes, what do I really know?
And the answer starts to shift from what God has revealed to what I can figure out with my own brain, with my own reason.
Enter deism. This is the worldview of many of the American founding fathers, actually. It's the halfway house between theism and atheism.
It really is.
Yeah.
The source uses a specific analogy here, the clockmaker.
Okay, the clockmaker God.
Yes. This comes largely from a misapplication of Isaac Newton's physics. Newton discovered these incredible, predictable laws of motion that governed the universe like a machine. People looked at that and said, wow, the universe is a perfect machine, a perfect clock.
And a machine, a clock, implies a builder.
Right. But, and here's the massive shift, once a clockmaker builds a clock and winds it up, he doesn't need to stand there and push the hands.
He's done.
He can leave the room, and the clock keeps ticking on its own.
So God becomes the absentee landlord, the divine retiree.
Exactly. In deism, the attributes of God change significantly. God is still creator, but he is not sustainer. The machine runs on its own laws.
And what about transcendent and immanent?
God is transcendent. He's out there somewhere, but he is not immanent. He is distant. He doesn't answer prayers. He doesn't do miracles. He doesn't incarnate.
That is a huge loss. You lose the relationship. The personal aspect is gone. Why was that attractive?
It felt safer to the Enlightenment mind. It elevated reason over revelation. The source calls this the shift to probability and progress. It allowed them to keep the comfort of a creator without the superstition of miracles or the messy authority of the church.
It's a cleaner, more rational, more manageable God.
A God who doesn't meddle. And this creates what the source calls the fact-faith distinction. This is something we still live with today.
Oh, absolutely. This is huge.
This is where we get the idea that science deals with facts, the real stuff, the machine, and religion deals with values or faith, the private, subjective, how you feel stuff.
So science gets the public square, and religion gets your private life.
Deism split the world in two. It kept God, but it put him in the attic. He's there, we know he built the house, but he doesn't come downstairs for dinner.
But if God is in the attic and never comes down, and the house runs fine without him, eventually someone is going to ask, why do we even need the guy in the attic?
And that is exactly the question that led to Section 3, the big drop. Naturalism.
This is the modern era. We are closing the box.
Yeah.
We are taking the deists' clockwork universe and just removing the clockmaker entirely.
Naturalism is the view that nature is all there is. To quote Carl Sagan again, the cosmos is all that is, or ever was, or ever will be. The box is sealed. There's nothing outside of it.
So let's define the attributes here. In theism, God is creator and sustainer. In deism, God is creator but not sustainer. In naturalism,
God is neither. He doesn't exist. Matter is the ultimate reality. It's eternal, or it came from nothing on its own. It's the only thing.
so how does everything get here? If you don't have a creator, what is the mechanism?
The mechanism is time plus chance. The formula is matter plus time plus chance. Everything. The cosmos, life, consciousness, everything you see.
Now, our source, Know Why You Believe, spends a lot of time challenging this view, specifically on scientific grounds. It argues that naturalism has a hard time explaining origins.
It does. It brings up the Rubik's Cube analogy from astronomer Sir Fred Hoyle.
This is a fascinating counterpoint. I've always found this one really powerful.
Hoyle was looking at the complexity of life, specifically the probability of life arising from non-living matter by pure chance. He asked, how long would it take a blindfolded man to solve a Rubik's Cube?
I can't solve one with my eyes open. So a very long time.
Well, Hoyle calculated that if the blindfolded man made one move per second without resting, it would take him 1.35 trillion years to solve it by chance.
1.35 trillion. The universe isn't even that old.
Not even close. The universe is about 14 billion years old. And Hoyle argues that the probability of forming just one of the many chains of amino acids in a living cell is even harder than that Rubik's Cube. A single cell has about 200,000 amino acids to get them to come together in the right order by accident. Hoyle says the odds are so small they are negligible. It's statistically impossible.
He also uses the junkyard tornado analogy, right?
Yes. He says thinking life appeared by chance is like thinking a tornado could sweep through a junkyard and accidentally assemble a Boeing 747, fueled and ready for takeoff.
That is a vivid image. But wait, the standard naturalist answer to this is evolution, right? Doesn't that explain it?
That is the standard answer. But the source makes a distinction here that is often overlooked in these debates. It distinguishes between microevolution and macroevolution.
Okay, let's unpack that. What's the difference?
Microevolution is change within a species. A horse getting a thicker coat in a cold climate. Bacteria becoming resistant to antibiotics. We see this all the time. It's adaptation. The source says a horse is still a horse. The changes happen within a limited range.
Right. Observable, repeatable.
Yes. Macroevolution is the jump from one distinct kind to another. Molecules becoming amoebas, becoming fish, becoming lizards, becoming mammals, becoming man.
The whole tree of life idea.
Right. Naturalism relies on this macroevolution being a blind, unguided process, the blind watchmaker, as Richard Dawkins calls it. The source argues that while microevolution is observed fact, macroevolution relies on a massive extrapolation that lacks the fossil evidence, the so-called missing links.
So the naturalist says, given enough time and anything is possible. The theist, and the source says, the complexity is too high for time and chance alone to overcome.
And beyond the science, the source points out logical holes in naturalism. It calls the worldview incoherent and unlivable.
Unlivable, that's a strong word. How so?
Well, think about the three big things naturalism can't explain. First, origins. How do you get something from nothing? The universe had a beginning. What did it come from?
Right, the who lit the fuse question again.
Second, mind. How does dead matter produce consciousness that can think about itself? How does a collection of atoms, a rock, eventually learn to contemplate its own existence and write poetry? There's no scientific explanation for consciousness.
And third,
Morality.
that's the big one for me. If we are just, as the source says, advanced slime, just products of time and chance, then why is murder wrong?
Exactly. In a purely naturalistic universe, a murder is just one collection of atoms dismantling another collection of atoms. Nature doesn't have morality. A lion isn't evil for eating a gazelle.
It's just survival.
It's just what lions do.
Yeah.
Universe doesn't care. So if naturalism is true, objective right and wrong disappear. It's all just preference. And that realization is terrifying.
It really is. It leads us directly into Section 4, the crisis. Because if you really take naturalism seriously, if you follow it to its logical conclusion, you end up at nihilism.
Nihilism is the honest child of naturalism. It is the philosophy that says, okay, God is dead, naturalism is true, therefore there is no meaning, there is no purpose, there is no objective morality.
It's the so what philosophy, the great shrug.
It's the death of God that Nietzsche talked about, and he wasn't celebrating it, he was terrified by it. He knew that if you remove the sun, which is God, the earth, which is humanity, freezes and flies off into the void.
We have some lyrics in the source from the band King Crimson, the song Epitaph. It captures this mood perfectly. The wall on which the prophets wrote is cracking at the seams. Confusion will be my epitaph.
Confusion will be my epitaph. That is the cry of nihilism. If there is no script, no director, no plot, then the play is just noise. It's all sound and fury signifying nothing.
The source mentions the dark conclusion of this. If life has no objective meaning, the only serious philosophical question is suicide.
That is the implication of writers like Albert Camus and Jean-Paul Sartre. If the universe is absurd and meaningless, why keep playing the game? It's the ultimate logical conclusion.
But people can't live like that. We can't live in the abyss. We crave meaning like we crave food. We can't survive believing we are just biological accidents.
No, it's psychologically unbearable. So we tried to build a ladder out of the pit. Enter existentialism.
Existentialism. The attempted rescue.
It is. It accepts the naturalist premise. There is no God, no objective meaning. But it rejects the nihilist conclusion that we should just give up.
So what's the solution? If the sky is empty, where do we find meaning?
You create your own meaning. This is the leap of faith. But unlike the religious leap toward God, this is a leap toward yourself.
The mantra becomes, create your own reality. Live your truth.
Exactly. Existence precedes essence. You exist first, as a blank slate, and then you define who you are through your choices. The source quotes the Polar Express here, of all things.
Wait, the Christmas movie with Tom Hanks?
Yes. The conductor says the thing about trains, it doesn't matter where you're going. What matters is deciding to get on.
That sounds inspirational in a coffee mug, but when you really think about it, it doesn't matter where you're going. So a train to a puppy sanctuary is the same as a train to Auschwitz.
That is pure existentialism. The destination, the objective truth, doesn't matter. The act of choosing, the subjective experience, is what matters.
This is another quote from the movie Serenity, based on the show Firefly. Shepard Book says, I don't care what you believe, just believe.
Again, the content of the belief is irrelevant. The virtue is in the believing itself. It's a coping mechanism. The source critiques this heavily.
As it should.
It argues that existentialism is inconsistent. You can't just manufacture meaning in a meaningless universe and expect it to hold weight. It's like painting a door on a solid wall and pretending you can walk through it. It feels good, but is it true?
It feels like a placebo. It's a psychological trick to keep the darkness of nihilism at bay.
It is. It's pretending there is meaning. And this emphasis on my meaning and my choice brings us to the final stop on our roadmap. Section 5, the destination, postmodernism. This is where we are right now.
So this is the water we're swimming in.
This is it. Postmodernism is where the shift becomes complete. We have moved from God's truth, theism, to reason's truth, deism, naturalism, to my truth, postmodernism.
The source defines this era by relativism and subjectivism.
Yes. In postmodernism, truth is no longer absolute. It is no longer external. It is relative and personal. That's true for you, but not for me.
We see this in language, too. The source mentions deconstruction. What does that mean?
It's the idea that words don't have fixed objective meanings that point to reality. Instead, language is just a tool for power.
So when I say a word,
if I say marriage or justice or man or woman, I'm not describing reality. I'm trying to impose my cultural power structure on you. So all communication becomes about power dynamics.
It's incredibly cynical. But here is the irony the source points out. Postmodernism claims there are no absolutes. There is no truth. But
Yeah.
doesn't that statement itself an absolute truth claim?
That is the fatal flaw. It is self-defeating. If you say it is absolutely true that there are no absolute truths, you have contradicted yourself in one sentence.
It's like writing a letter that says, I do not know how to write.
The act proves the statement false. But culturally, we don't care about the logic. We care about the vibe.
And the vibe is freedom. The source says the only absolutes left in postmodernism are freedom and choice.
And the only sin is intolerance. If you tell someone they are wrong, you are committing the cardinal sin of postmodernism. You are imposing your reality on theirs. You are being oppressive.
We see this in the pop culture references again. John Lennon's all go, imagine there's no heaven, living for today. It's a hymn to naturalism and postmodernism. No judgment, no future, just now.
And King Crimson again. 21st century schizoid man. The lyrics describe a fragmented, chaotic reality. Blood rack barbed wire. Cat's foot iron claw. It's a nightmare of disconnection, of a world with no center.
There's a lighter but equally telling quote from a Harley-Davidson ad in the source. Most things that feel this good have been outlawed.
And the implication is,
So they must be good.
if it feels good, it must be right. That is the moral compass of postmodernism. Hedonism becomes the default ethics because there is no higher authority to check it.
So we have traveled from the cathedral to the mirror. In the cathedral, the theistic age, we looked up. In the mirror, the postmodern age, we just look at ourselves.
Let's pull this all together in Section 6, comparison and synthesis. Let's look at the stark contrast.
Theism versus postmodernism.
In theism, truth is external, God-given, and absolute. It exists whether you believe it or not. In postmodernism, truth is internal, self-constructed, and relative. It only exists if you believe it.
And this affects everything. The source Know Why You Believe brings up the concept of presuppositions. This is crucial for understanding why we can't just argue facts with people anymore.
Yes. Facts are neutral, presuppositions are not. The book uses the illustration of a husband seeing his wife riding in a car with a stranger.
Ooh, this is a good one. Break it down.
Two men see the exact same event. The wife is in a car with a man who is not her husband. One man is the husband who loves and trusts her. His presupposition is, she is faithful.
So what does he see?
He interprets the fact as she must be helping someone, or that's a relative, I don't know. He finds an innocent explanation.
And the other man?
The other man is the town gossip. His presupposition is, people are scandalous. So he sees the exact same fact wife in car with stranger and interprets it as she's having an affair.
The facts are the same. The interpretation, the meaning, depends entirely on the worldview you start with.
Exactly. And this applies to the universe. The theist and the atheist look at the same universe. The theist sees the fine-tuning as evidence of the gardener. The atheist sees it as a lucky roll of the cosmic dice. You cannot understand the conclusion without understanding the presupposition.
So where does this leave society? The source includes a slide titled What You Think that shows the impact.
It is massive. Faith moves from truth about the universe, like gravity, to personal subjective hobby. You hear people say, I'm glad your religion makes you feel good.
As if it's not about truth, but about therapy.
As if religion is just a therapeutic technique, like yoga or knitting. It's a private preference.
And morality moves from God's law to social construct, or just feeling.
Which is dangerous. If morality is just a social construct, then the Nazis weren't wrong in an absolute sense. They just had a different social construct than we did. Most people recoil at that conclusion, which suggests that deep down we are still theists about morality.
We act like it's real.
We want right and wrong to be real. The source suggests that postmodernism is ultimately self-defeating and unlivable. We can't actually live as if truth is relative. We look both ways before crossing the street because we believe the bus is objectively real, not just a social construct that we can deconstruct.
We do. And we demand justice when we are wronged. We don't accept, well, in the thief's worldview, taking your wallet was an act of liberation.
No, we call the police. We live like theists, even if we think like postmodernists.
So we are nearing the end of our dive. We have traced the shift. Theism, deism, naturalism, nihilism, existentialism, postmodernism.
It has been a journey from certainty to confusion, from a shared story to a million individual stories that don't connect.
I want to end with a provocative thought from the source material. It references the song Dust in the Wind by the band Kansas.
All we are is dust in the wind.
It's a haunting lyric. It sounds beautiful and profound, but the message is pure nihilism. If naturalism is true, that's all we are, just dust, just atoms swirling for a moment before dispersing.
And here's the question for you, the listener. The move from theism to postmodernism was sold as a move toward freedom. Freedom from authority, freedom from the church, freedom to define ourselves.
That was the promise.
But looking at the lyrics of Epitaph or Dust in the Wind, does it feel like freedom? Or does it feel like confusion? Does being dust in the wind make you feel liberated, or does it make you feel small and insignificant?
And that raises the challenge. Can a society actually survive if truth is merely a power game? Can we build a civilization on the foundation that nothing is objectively true?
Or is it possible that the gardener was there all along and we just stopped looking?
That is the ultimate question. We want to encourage you to examine your own glasses. When you look at the world, at the beauty, the suffering, the complexity, are you looking through a lens of chance or a lens of design?
And remember, you can't just look at the lenses. You have to take them off and examine them to see if they are giving you a clear picture of reality.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for swimming through the centuries with us.
It was a pleasure.
Catch you next time.